Unless you are dedicated to not knowing about such things, pretty well all of us know our astrology sign. Most probably for the majority of us, that is our Western astrology sign. There will be those amongst us who may even know our Chinese sign, and going beyond just the animal, will also know the element involved. The Chinese astrological system is a topic for another day. But the astrological signs that we mainly use, and many of us rush to applications, the paper, how many of us every morning ask Alexa for a horoscope? I know I do. There is a cachet and there is a long history of this type of astrology. And whilst we can trace our astrology back through the Greco-Roman world to Babylon, much of it is born within the medieval and Renaissance period. This, of course, does not negate its importance. But there is another side to astrology, and that is in the role of the spiritual path connected to the planets. Now, if you are a devotee of chaos magic, please feel free to roll your eyes as we go through this. But those of you maybe familiar with Goetia or Chaldean magic, certainly the Golden Dawn and most Western occult systems will be familiar with the concept of planetary days and hours. And the theory is that certain planetary signs rule certain days and certain hours. And many who have fallen upon a copy, for instance, of the Clavicula Solomonis or the Key of Solomon, especially if it is the MacGregor Mathers and Crowley translation, go to do all the work in this and then go to find the corresponding days and hours to which they need to do their workings or to consecrate their sigils. And when they do, they're greeted by a table. And this table gives days and then a series of hours. And this relates to the different planets that rule those hours. And the blindly keen go to their 24-hour clock, they calculate this and then go to do and perform their workings based upon, it says, the 10th hour of the day, and so they go to 10 a.m. They perform their working, and if they're lucky they'll get a result, but very often they may not. And part of the reason is that they failed to understand something quite important. And that is how time was once calculated. And this is something that's as applicable in the Western system as it is, for instance, in the Vedic system. The Vedic system of astrology is something that is growing in awareness in the West and does offer a valid alternative to the Western system of astrology, although there are differences in how it's done and also in the signs you may find that you are given. And part of the problem is that the day refers to daylight hours and the night refers to night hours, and these are not based upon a clock. They're based upon sunrise and sunset. So daylight hours begin at sunrise and end at sunset. And night hours, evening hours, begin at sunset and end at sunrise. And if you are doing a working and you want to do it during daytime, for instance, you're doing something with the sun or with Venus, the important thing to know is that you take the time from sunrise to sunset and then you divide it by 12. And that will give you an astrological hour. And you do the same at night. But whoa, you might point out, sunrise and sunset changes throughout the year and it's not even, so these hours change and they are different. And the simple answer to this is yes. If you are in the very, very far north, where I lived for many years, and if the gods are kind, I will be there again soon, and you have daylight in winter, you are lucky if you have 5 hours. Yet you must divide that by 12. And in that you then count first hour, second hour, third hour, it says the 10th hour. You have to count forward 10 hours, but they are the 10 hours for that daylight time at that time of year. And of course, likewise, the evening hours, you're lucky if you're going to be doing workings at that time, are going to be much longer. So you have a lot longer to do the working. And the same happens in, of course, summer, where the daylight becomes very long and the night becomes extremely short the further north you get. Likewise, the length of the hours adjust. And for those of you of a more mathematical bent, then this presents a pleasing challenge. But for those of us for whom mathematics is not our greatest skill, or you just simply are tired and need to work this out with the least faffle, there are some amazing apps out there that you can use. I use GeoTimeDate, for instance, but if you do a Google search on planetary hours or planetary times, there are apps that will be able to, you can type in your location and it will give you the day and night hours and the times that they start, so that you can then begin to choose the hours. Say if you wish to consecrate a sigil to Saturn, then you don't just want to do it on the day of Saturn, you want to do it in the hour of Saturn, and you're able to find the exact time. And so be able to prepare, begin your ritual and end. Likewise, if you're doing meditations or evocations or invocations of the planets. And for those of you who are exploring these type of workings, this is of itself a rewarding task. It is a form of preparation, of getting your mind into the mindset for that particular energy. But when we cross systems, the hours remain the same. They are surprisingly consistent. However, if I were to use, for instance, I have a chart read and it says that there is a particular planet that is harshly aspected, completely missing, or is unfavorable at the moment, then I may want to work with that. And how that is done is different in each system, though there are great similarities. But of course, how this works depends upon which chart you're using. I, for instance, in the Western system, have Taurus Sun, Aquarius rising, and Leo moon. Taurus Sun means my Sun is in Venus. Aquarius rising means my rising or my ascendant sign is in Saturn. And Leo, of course, is in Jupiter. However, in the Indian system, there is the concept of sidereal progression. And so, in fact, my sun sign is Aries, and my ascendant is Aquarius, and my moon is in Cancer. And so, depending on what I'm doing, I need to adjust myself as to what I'm going to focus on. And I, for my own personal journey, have begun working with my Vedic signs, as there is a continuous line of practice that goes back thousands of years, and it is continuous. That does not negate the Western system, which, if that works for you, then do that. But there is not the accumulated ephemera of practice, because the spiritual systems within which this originated, paganism, either was cut off for a long period of time and became a heart and mind treasure to be revealed later, or became subsumed and hidden and a lot of the knowledge lost, or people took astrology but applied it using a Christian, an Islamic, or a Jewish understanding, which of course is divorced from the origins of this system. And this makes working with the planets a delicate thing. And in that, it is a huge subject that I will not go into at the moment. But in the Vedic system, it's much easier. A very revered friend of mine and a scholar of the development of religion, and also Joseph Campbell, who I had the pleasure of attending lectures for, both said this same thing when they asked, did paganism survive? And they turned around and went, well, of course it did. They went, where? And they laughed and said, well, you can go to Japan and it's Shinto. You can go to China and it's Taoism. And of course, in Hinduism, Bharatiya, the Bharatayana, the path of the great song. This is actually paganism, especially Hinduism. It's not one religion, though there are people trying to codify it as such. It is a collection of cults and faiths that live within an umbrella. And really, that's paganism. And if paganism had survived in the West, then we would not actually have an idea of such a thing as Hinduism because of our need to codify things, but rather would see it as these are the gods of this region and these are the gods of my region. And many of the gods in Hinduism, of course, are relatable to pagan traditions because these deities move between each other and draw from each other, and there was communication. And in this, there is the astrological system. So, for instance, my rising sign in Hindu spirituality, or in Vedic spirituality, to be more precise, to remove it from its Hindu religious context, in the Vedic spiritual system and the astrological system that arises from that, the rising sign or the ascendant is the much more important. You go to that, you don't go to your sun sign. Your sun sign's important. But of course, I've moved from Venus to Mars. Chalk and cheese. Weirdly enough, in the Western system, this relates to certain of the pantheons where Venus and Mars, or Aphrodite and Ares, were married. So I can work with that. But when we come to Capricorn as my ascendant or Aquarius as my ascendant, they both share in Saturn. And so when I wish to work with Saturn, and if Saturn, for instance, was badly aspected, which it is not in my chart, but if it was, or there was a negative star moving through, or a negative opposition, or I just wanted to strengthen it, then there are whole remedies called yogas, and these involve burning certain incenses, wearing certain colours, reciting certain number of mantras at certain times, and offering these up to A, heal your connection with that astrological sign, and B, to gain the favour of that planet, that planetary aspect. And in this, we can learn a lot from this, because even though much of this wasn't written down, or if it was, it's been burnt and destroyed, we can be sure that much the same processes would have applied in the ancient world. Certainly, if we were looking in Mesopotamia and the Middle East, where astrology was developed to a very, very high degree. And it's quite possible for you to look up, for instance, mantras of a planet along with the different practices to help connect you with that planet. But understand that these are done within a Vedic and, for want of a better word, a Hindu context. But the science can be applied in the Western system. If, for instance, I am trying to placate Venus, the planet Venus, then within the Western system, this is Aphrodite, or Venus. And you could, with the lack of a mantra, recite the Orphic prayer to Aphrodite or Venus whilst burning the incenses and wearing the colours that apply to that sign. But this requires you to do your exploration and to construct your own meaning from this. And in so doing, breathe life into this system, whether you do it within a Western context, an Eastern context, or Dharmic context, or a cross-cultural or axial worldview. But the journey is worth making. And the transformation it brings into our lives is one worth exploring. And whether you are doing it to enhance your works of magic or esoterica, or whether you're doing it to deepen your mystical connection with your own journey, your own karma, your own path, your own dharma, your own existence within this incarnation, it is a journey worth doing, and I heartily recommend it. And so I wish you a very happy new year. We still have a month or so to go till the Lunar New Year starts. I'm very excited about that. Even though I'm a rabbit, I have one favourable star in the snake, so it's not as bad as it could be. But I pray that the new year brings you blessings. I pray that the new year brings you insights, wonder, and that in your mystical journey you are able to find joy and merriment. I am Dr. Shimon de Valencia, and I am the Merry Mystic, and I wish you a hearty namaste.